Tennis Mailbag, what the Carlos Alcaraz documentary reveals about the form. The Netflix series featuring the Spanish star has received mixed reviews. Plus, IGA Swiatek struggles continue as Roland Garros looms. Next week we'll have a Roland Garros tips sheet and seed reports for the 2025 French Open. Christopher Clary's new Rafael Nadal biography, The Warrior, is out this week. Here's a Q&A with the author. Congrats to Mark Hodgkinson, whose Novak Djokovic biography won International Sports Book of the Year at last week's Sports Book Awards in London. There were a handful of questions, not a ton, but a handful, telling in itself perhaps, about the Carlos Alcaraz documentary. So, let's start here. The week before last, My Way came out on Netflix, and it has not drawn generally stellar reviews. So much so that Alcaraz was asked about it last week as his first question in Rome. I think the issue here is simple, and it is definitional. We think of documentaries as the works of Alex Gibney, Michael Moore, and Errol Morris, essentially nonfiction works of independent journalism, presented in an arced 100 or so minute form. Issues investigated, truths uncovered, hypocrisies laid bare, prominent figures probed and pushed and explored. Intended as full disclosure, not cringy self-promotion, I am an executive producer on Untold, The Fall of Brett Favre, coming out on Netflix next week. So many modern documentaries, while still filed under the same heading, are often something else. They are branding exercises, the modern version of the As Told To book, for which the subjects are paid, and more critically, are given editorial control to the digression. Remember The Last Dance? Of course you do. It sustained us during the COVID-19 lockdown and was the rare recent sports doc that spilled over into culture at large. It was directed, skillfully, by Jason Heher, now hard at work bringing Novak Djokovic's story to the form. Anyway, for The Last Dance, Michael Jordan held final say rights. But I've been told he did not exercise them. That is, he never said, "We need to cut this chunk, as I look like a hyper-competitive maniac whose perceived slight by someone who meant me no harm motivated me in the extreme." No, Jordan was remarkably, admirably hands-off. And I would submit this warts-and-all portrayal not only undergirded the film's success but, ultimately, made Jordan look better and fuller and more compelling than any balloons and rainbows hagiographic infomercial, bereft of any tension. Anyway, back to Alcaraz, I'm not sure what he and his camp demanded be cut or not allowed to be filmed. But there is a conspicuous lack of real conflict, the basis for any story worth telling. Yes, he is wrestling with the age-old athlete conundrum. Full dedication to being the best versus I'm rich and fun and single in my early 20s and coursing with testosterone and enjoying visiting Ibiza. And, yes, there is the specter of the big three, Nadal in particular, which positions Alcaraz, perhaps unfairly, as not just an exquisite player but the sport savior who must launch at a time when 20-plus majors is the recent standard. But overall, this doc felt like a lot of wallpaper without much furniture. Inside access is great, but what are you accessing once inside? Then there is another problem with the current documentary form and format. The buyers, the streamers in particular, want the biggest names and celebrities with the most currency. But almost by definition, that means, A, these people are in their meaty primes and have concerns more pressing than devoting time and thought to self-exploration. You're not going to go deep with a filmmaker when you have a big match the next day. You're not going to reveal your doubts and weaknesses when you are an active athlete, and opponents could exploit this. B, these subjects are young and active and incapable of the kind of reflection and detached perspective that make the best documentaries sing. C, The Last Dance and Beckham, and this is why I have such high hopes for Andre Agassi. C, I'll add a third point. Injuries are a central part of sports, a pursuit predicated on the human body allowing for peak performance. But injuries don't make for riveting content. There are only so many scenes of rehab we can tolerate, only so many earnest but numbingly familiar discussions among team members. Should I push my body and risk the future, or should I play it safe and risk regret? As an audience, we want the binaries that make sports, glorious victory and or devastating defeat. Not in the third set. I could feel my hamstring get tight, and I will seek treatment and hope it's not going to cause me to miss Shanghai, but we'll see what the scans say. All of which is to say, if you share the belief of many that this was an underwhelming project, don't blame Alcaraz. Blame the form. Alcaraz played his role fine. He offered a curated glimpse into his life. He allowed the viewer, limited, generally anodyne, access to folks in his orbit, not least his thoroughly pleasant mother. He came across as likable, talented, fun-loving, and benign. He also cashed a considerable check for this endeavor. The good news, you get multiple bites of this apple. When it's 2045 and we get Alcaraz, gray in the temple, wise, ensconced in Marbella and naughty Ibiza, going deep on his career, reflecting on his triumphs and missteps, pondering the meaning of it all. Now that's a documentary. What's going on with IGA Swiatek was another hot topic this week. Swiatek lost another early round match to a lower-ranked opponent, this one in Rome to Danielle Collins. This came on the heels of a 6-1 defeat to Coco Gauff the previous week, and suddenly the three-time defending Roland Garros champion will arrive as the fourth seed, a player without a tournament win, not even a final for that matter, since last year's Roland Garros. Phrased as delicately as possible, this is a player in distress. The results are a symptom, not a source. Stress is welded on her face when she plays. Her anxiety is apparent in her social media posts and conceded in interviews. There have been uncharacteristic acts of pique. This is plain to all observers, including her opponents, who have come to realize this is not the same player and person who is running roughshod over the field, fearless under pressure, as she's been for much of the past 3 years. There were some troubling signs last season. Clear discomfort and awkwardness within the camp. A general joylessness. Once her trademark, when was the last time there was a light-hearted discussion about the books she was reading or a cheat meal she enjoyed? Then came the doping situation. While reasonable people, which is to say most everyone, quickly realized there was no wrongdoing and the incident said everything about the unyielding process and nothing about Swiatek's personal ethics, it's clear this has been deeply disruptive. Correlation doesn't equal causation, but she's simply been a different player since this ordeal began. If you're in her camp, you preach joy. Life is good. Careers don't move in straight lines. Go back and look at Djokovic's 2017. We're going to be okay here. B. Preach long-term history, not recent history. Sure, this year has not gone as planned. But you're going to an event you've won 4 of the past 5 years. You are the queen here. Don't forget that.